Right now, three ground-shaking events are unfolding at the same time, and almost nobody is connecting them. In Naples, Italy, the ground beneath 500,000 people just moved harder than it has in 40 years. In Kyushu, Japan, a magnitude 7.1 earthquake ripped through Kumamoto Prefecture on July 28, 2026, triggering a tsunami advisory and a gas explosion at a shopping mall. And across France and Spain, more than 300,000 people are fleeing wildfires driven by extreme heat and dry winds. 3 continents, 3 disasters, same week. But it's the Naples event that has volcanologists the most worried, because it didn't happen on some random fault line. It happened directly on top of one of the most dangerous volcanic systems on Earth. On July 31, 2026, at 7:46 p.m. local time, a magnitude 4.7 earthquake tore through the Campi Flegrei caldera, just west of Naples. The epicenter sat almost directly beneath the Solfatara crater in Pozzuoli, at a depth of only 3 kilometers, shallow enough that nearly all of the energy hit the surface with almost nothing to absorb it. Italy's National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology, INGV, confirmed it within hours. This was the strongest earthquake recorded in that area since continuous instrumental monitoring began. At least 26 people were injured. Buildings collapsed. A cliff face crumbled onto the coastline. The port of Pozzuoli shut down completely, cutting off ferry access to the islands of Procida and Ischia. Train service across the entire Naples metro network was suspended for hours. And it didn't stop at one shock. More than 60 aftershocks rattled the region through the night, the largest a magnitude 3.8 that hit the Gulf of Pozzuoli at 10 p.m. Residents didn't wait for a follow-up warning. Thousands slept outside that night, in parks, parking lots, anywhere away from a roof that might come down. Here's the number that should stop you cold. This magnitude 4.7 event beat 2 separate magnitude 4.6 earthquakes that had already broken 40-year records in 2025. That means Campi Flegrei has now set a new, strongest in modern memory benchmark 3 times in just over 12 months. This is not a random, isolated tremor. This is a caldera that has been building towards something for 2 decades. Let's break down exactly what Campi Flegrei is, because most people have never heard the name, and that's exactly the problem. Campi Flegrei, the Phlegreian Fields, is not a mountain like Vesuvius sitting quietly in the distance. It's a sunken supervolcanic caldera roughly 9 kilometers wide, sitting almost entirely underneath and around the city of Pozzuoli, just 15 kilometers from downtown Naples. Inside that caldera are 24 separate craters and volcanic vents. Around 500,000 people live directly inside it. Another 3 million live in the wider Naples metropolitan area within its blast radius. Since 2005, the ground inside the caldera has been rising in a process called bradyseism. Magma and volcanic gases pushing up from below, inflating the crust like a slow-motion balloon. INGV's Vesuvian Observatory has documented the uplift precisely. The ground near Pozzuoli has now risen more than 140 centimeters since the unrest began. That's not a rounding error. That's the height of a 10-year-old child in solid rock displacement over 2 decades, and the rate has been accelerating, not slowing down. Earlier this year, between February 23 and March 1, 2026, INGV recorded approximately 70 earthquakes in that single week alone, concentrated beneath Pozzuoli and the nearby Agnano district. The following week, the count dropped to 47, still elevated, but a brief window of relief before the pattern picked back up and eventually produced the July 31st record breaker. Now let's talk about why a magnitude 4.7 earthquake can do this much damage, when you've probably felt bigger news headlines about magnitude 7s and 8s and shrugged them off. Here's the science, made visceral. The Richter and moment magnitude scales are logarithmic, not linear. That means each whole number increase, say from magnitude 4 to magnitude 5, doesn't mean a bit more energy. It means roughly 32 times more energy released. Go from magnitude 4.7 to a hypothetical 6.7, and you're not looking at double the destruction, you're looking at over 32,000 times the energy. To put the July 31st Campi Flegrei quake in terms your brain can actually process, a magnitude 4.7 earthquake releases energy roughly equivalent to detonating 6,000 tons of TNT. That's not a bottle rocket. That's roughly 400 times the explosive yield of the bomb that leveled a city block in the Beirut port disaster of 2020. And that energy didn't dissipate through deep rock over dozens of kilometers. It detonated just 3 kilometers under a densely packed coastal city, which is why shallow, moderate earthquakes in volcanic zones are frequently more destructive than deeper, bigger earthquakes hundreds of kilometers offshore. This is also why the July 28 magnitude 7.1 earthquake in Kumamoto, Japan, a quake roughly 1,400 times more energetic than the Campi Flegrei event, didn't produce a comparable death toll. Which brings us to the core comparison of this video. Two earthquakes, one massively larger on paper. Wildly different outcomes. Let's look at why. The Kumamoto earthquake struck at a depth of just over 6 miles, roughly triple the depth of the Campi Flegrei quake, off Japan's Kyushu coast. Japan's meteorological agency confirmed it hit the highest end of the seismic intensity scale. It triggered a temporary tsunami advisory, caused a gas explosion at a shopping mall in Kashima town, and forced evacuation orders across the region. And yet, despite being one of the most powerful earthquakes to hit Japan in years, the confirmed casualty figures stayed remarkably low compared to the sheer magnitude involved. Why? Because Japan has spent 50 years and untold billions of dollars building an earthquake-resilient nation. Post-1981 building codes require structures to survive shaking that would flatten unreinforced masonry elsewhere. Early warning systems give residents seconds to duck under furniture before the worst shaking arrives. Tsunami advisory protocols are drilled into the public from childhood. Now compare that to Pozzuoli. Much of the housing stock in the Campi Flegrei area predates modern Italian seismic codes, which weren't seriously modernized in this specific region until relatively recently. A 2025 study published in Nature Communications, scenario-based forecast of the evolution of 75 years of unrest at Campi Flegrei, modeled multiple future scenarios for the caldera, and reached a clear conclusion. Seismic risk mitigation, specifically retrofitting older buildings, is the single most effective strategy available right now, regardless of whether a full eruption ever occurs. That's the lesson buried in this comparison. A magnitude 7.1 earthquake in a prepared nation can produce fewer casualties than a magnitude 4.7 earthquake in an underprepared one. Magnitude tells you how much energy was released. It does not tell you how many people survive. Preparation does. Here's a fact that puts everything else in this video into perspective. Campi Flegrei isn't just any volcanic system. It's classified as a supervolcano, and it has erupted catastrophically before. Around 39,000 years ago, the Campanian ignimbrite eruption at this exact site is believed to have been one of the largest volcanic events in Europe in the last 200,000 years, ejecting enough ash and sulfur to trigger measurable global cooling. Some researchers have linked that eruption's climate impact to disruptions in Neanderthal populations across Europe at the time. That's the geological history sitting directly underneath a modern city of 3 million people. And here's where we need to address the misinformation directly, because this is exactly the kind of story that spirals into panic online. No, INGV and independent volcanologists have not declared an imminent eruption. Ground uplift and increased seismicity are consistent with ongoing bradyseismic unrest, a well-documented, decades-long process, not confirmation that magma is about to reach the surface. Predicting the exact timing of a caldera eruption remains scientifically impossible with current monitoring technology. What scientists have said is more measured. Certain modeled scenarios project a critical mechanical threshold, essentially, a point where the crust can no longer absorb the accumulated pressure without fracturing more severely, potentially arriving around 2033 under current trends. That is a modeled projection, not a prophecy, and it comes with wide uncertainty bands. Anyone telling you they know the exact date of an eruption is not a scientist, they're a content creator chasing panic clicks. So what do you actually do with this information if you live in, or are traveling to, a seismically active region like this? Here's your practical checklist. Number 1. Know your building. If you're in an older structure in a seismic zone, find out whether it's been retrofitted. This single factor determines survival more than almost anything else. Number 2. Identify your drop zones now, not during the shaking. Under sturdy furniture, away from windows and heavy shelving, is standard drop, cover, hold-on protocol worldwide. Number 3. Keep a 72-hour emergency kit, water, non-perishable food, flashlight, first aid, copies of documents, accessible at all times, not buried in a closet. Number 4. If you're near a coastline in a seismic zone, know your evacuation route to higher ground before you ever need it in case of a tsunami advisory. Number 5. Follow official channels only. INGV, USGS, and your local civil protection authority. Never social media rumors, for real-time updates during any active swarm. Number 6. If you feel prolonged or unusual shaking in a region like Campi Flegrei, do not go back inside for belongings. Aftershocks in these swarms have repeatedly followed within hours. This region isn't going anywhere, and neither is the risk. The ground under Pozzuoli has been rising for 20 years, the earthquakes have been getting stronger for 2 summers in a row, and the science says this pattern is not finished writing its next chapter. Have you ever actually felt an earthquake, even a small one? Tell me in the comments where you were and how strong it felt. I want to hear real stories, not just statistics. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening at Campi Flegrei, smash the like button. Let's get this past 10,000 likes so more people see the real science instead of the panic headlines. And if you want to stay ahead of the next major seismic or volcanic event before it becomes mainstream news, subscribe to Infinity Alert and turn on notifications, because the ground doesn't wait for headlines, and neither should you.